Hello and welcome to what I hope is going to be a quick video about one of the key features of the latest 1.0.3 release of the FVWM window manager. For those who don't know, or perhaps have been living under a rock for the past 20 years at least, this window manager is old. It's one of the first window managers for Linux, major ones at least. But in more recent times, lots of others have come about, and lots of big desktop environments in particular have sprung up. And so this particular window manager is still about it's finding its niche, and it can certainly hold its own with regards to feature parity. One of the things that I was asked quite a bit over the last few weeks is to do with the desktop configuration command, which you can use in this window manager to define the behavior of how desktops interact with monitors. So in front of you here you can see two screens. There's a screen here on the left and here on the right, and the panel here neatly divides those as an indicator. This is the default configuration that ships with FVWM 3. So out the box you'll see that there's a pager here, and that there's 4 desks defined. The pager here is showing desk 0, and there are 4 pages. Now, unlike any other window manager that I'm aware of, they all have a concept of desks or groups, to use a different name, but pages subdivide a desk even further to allow you to still work within the same desktop, but have subdivisions within that so you can house different areas of work. So for example, I could start up an Xterm here on desk 0, and let's say that we call this work for whatever reason. I might decide that I now want to have a different page that has Emacs on it, and that's fair enough. When I switch to desktop 1, I now have another blank desktop to repeat and house the same concept or groups of windows as I want to. If I come over to this monitor here and start an Xterm, you'll note that when I do that and switch between different pages, that changes for both these monitors here. And if I just switch back to desktop 0, you can see here that on this page is Emacs. There is no other window here because on this particular page we don't have one. And if I switch up to here, there's our original Xterm, and as I go through desktop 1, 2 and 3, they'll all be blank because we haven't started anything. So out the box, that behavior where switching to pages and desks affects all monitors is called a global mode, because that has been the default behavior for many years. One of the core concepts that I was keen to introduce quite quickly into the successor of FVWM2 was the ability to take that a stage further and have desktops and pages that were bound to monitors distinctly. So for example, we could have a configuration here of 4 desks and 4 pages. This monitor here would have its own copy of that. This monitor here would have its own copy of that, and I can demonstrate that. So here we have our pager, and again this is an expanded view of this one here, which is global. So I've configured both these pages to only show windows that are on the specific monitor that we've specified in the configuration here. So this monitor in the real world, if you like, is just one monitor, but for the purposes of this video I've split it in half, and each of those individual halves has its own name that we can reference. And the naming is confusing, but that's just the syntax that R&R happens to use. And we can see that in this view, this page here has indeed these two windows, and there is nothing showing here because, at least in this section, because I don't have a window, so you can quite see that there is that separation. I haven't yet told the window manager that I want to have that separation. So again, if I just click through, you can see that this is affecting both monitors. If I now change that to be per monitor, and I'm using FVWM console here, which is a standard module with the window manager that allows me to inject commands into it as if I type that in my configuration file, but the difference here is that I don't have to restart the window manager for these things to take effect. So now, having typed that, nothing has changed, or at least visually, yes, but now these windows are acutely aware of which monitor they're attached to. So now as I click around, you'll note that nothing's changed here, but the view on this monitor here has. There's a Remax window from before, and we're back again into our two next terms. So if I start up this X term here and put Midnight Commander in it, for instance, again, if I just repeat the same actions, I'm on this page now for this monitor. Nothing over here has changed because it's completely separate. And again, the same thing can be said if I switch to desktop 2. That's clearly just only affected this monitor, and if I come over here to desktop 1, again, completely bound to that specific monitor. So this is a really powerful way of being able to take the original concepts of this global mode, but just have that bound to the individual monitors in question. It is also possible to what we call pan around the virtual desktop using the mouse, which would actually allow us to move between pages. So if I just move my cursor up to the top here, you'll see that we're now on desk 1, page 00, and if I move to the right, you'll see that this black square will move to the right, and only that. For this monitor, again, nothing will happen over here. Although it's not clear to see because you have to imagine this is an actual monitor, the corners of the monitor do allow you to still pan around like that. And that concept, again, I believe is quite unique to this specific window manager. And again, you know, if you've ever used other window managers such as DWM or Xmonad, this sort of idea is fairly common. I think it's only recently that GNOME 40 introduced something similar to this. So I think quite a few desktop environments do have a lot of catching up to do. So the final mode, which I think is perhaps the most confusing, and certainly when I tried to articulate this in the man page, I don't think I did it justice. So if anyone does actually read that and feels that it needs improving, then please do open up an issue on GitHub, or better still, submit some patches. But the third mode is called shared. Now, The only window manager I'm aware of, window managers I suppose plural, that do this is Xmonad and Herb's Luft WM. Now, if you thought FVWM had a really weird name, you should try pronouncing that one. So in this mode, I haven't actually enacted it yet. What will happen now is, I think this is where it gets a little confusing. I'm just going to close one of these off, I think. Yeah. So now what happens, these desks are shared amongst both monitors. So there's only one copy of these desks. So you can no longer view these desks independently from each monitor. However, what you can do is view each of these desks on separate monitors. If you were to try and move between desks where one of those desks are already showing, then effectively those two desks swap. And I'll try and demonstrate that now. So when I run this, I'll just bring back our second page. So again, here I am on desk main, and over here we have desk 1, and I'm just going to start up an Xterm here. Okay, so if I'm on desk 1 and I think I want main to be on this monitor instead, I can do that. And when I do that, because main is already viewed on this monitor and I'm coming from desk 1, then effectively they're going to exchange positions, and main will come onto this monitor and desk 1 will come onto the opposite monitor. So there's our original Xterm, and there's all the windows in situ again from main. Now, because main is already there and desk 2 and desk 3 aren't mapped to any other monitor, because I've only got 2 monitors, I can go to desk 3 here, and that won't affect anything over here because we're only ever worried about desktops and where they're viewed now. So if they're not mapped anywhere, then there's no exchange to be had. So I can come over to desk 3, open up another Xterm. I can even pan down here, and again, because I'm looking at desk 3 on this monitor, nowhere else, it looks as though it's distinct to this particular monitor, but really it's not. So if I create a couple of Xterms here, if I now go to I keep hitting that, don't I? If I now go to desk 3 here, again, that's exchanged with this main, and also because I asked for that particular page, that's the one that also switches over to here. We can go back up to there if we want to. And again, if I go to desk 3, that's move things across. So that's how that works. You can have a series of desks, and yeah, windows are moved into the appropriate monitor. I guess another way of looking at this is that the desks are static actually, and your viewpoint onto those desks just happens to be whichever monitor you want, but you can never have more than one monitor looking at any one desktop at any one time. To do that, you have to exchange them. That's the best way that I can come up with it. It's one of those idioms which some people really love, this particular mode that is, others don't. I'm actually in two minds myself whether I intend to use this full time. I'm already a huge fan of the per monitor mode because that's how I like to organise things. I treat monitors as distinct entities. But I suppose the sort of power of this shared mode has yet to be determined. So as more people hopefully use it, that should uncover some interesting workflows that I'm not aware of. So that was it really. That's just a very quick look at what that mode does and how it works. And if you have any questions, do feel free to stop by our IRC channel, which is on Libera Chat. Recently moved from Freenode, or indeed you can open up a GitHub issue to ask any questions that you might have there. Thank you very much for your time.